He looked me in the eye when he did it. That is the part I need you to understand first. Not the tearing itself, though I will tell you about the tearing, every detail of it, because the details matter, and because I have spent enough of my life having the details of things done to me minimized by people who were not in the room when they happened. Not the sound, which was small and clean and over in less than a second. Not the specific quality of the silence that followed, which was the silence of a crowd that has witnessed something and has not yet decided what to do with what it witnessed. He looked me in the eye. He wanted me to know he was doing it. He wanted me to understand that this was not an accident, not a fumble, not the regrettable result of bureaucratic confusion. He wanted me to see his face while he did it so that I would know, so that my body would record and carry the knowledge, that he had done it on purpose and that he believed he could. My name is Dr. Vanessa Cole. I am 46 years old. I am the daughter of Leonard and Me Cole of Memphis, Tennessee, who raised me and my two brothers in a 3-bedroom house on Parkway Avenue with the specific combination of love and expectation that people use when they want to give their children something the world will try to take, and they need the children to hold it tightly enough that the world cannot get purchase. My father drove a city bus for 31 years. My mother taught 3rd grade at Trezevant Elementary for 27. Between them, they produced 3 children who went to college, 2 who went to graduate school, and 1, the youngest, the girl, the one who always had the most questions, who went further than the family had a map for. On the morning that TSA agent Raymond Briggs tore my passport in half at Gate Security Checkpoint 7 of Memphis International Airport, I was 36 hours away from being announced as the incoming Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Airlines, the 7th largest commercial carrier in the United States, with 208 aircraft, 38,000 employees, and operations spanning 4 continents. Raymond Briggs did not know this. Raymond Briggs knew what he saw. And what he saw, when I approached his checkpoint at 6:47 on a Wednesday morning in November with my boarding pass and my passport, and my soft travel clothes, and my natural hair and my body that carries its 46 years with the specific quality of a woman who has made peace with every version of herself she has ever been, what he saw was not what I was. This is the story of what happened when what he saw met what I actually was. And I need you to stay for all of it. Because the ending is not what you think. The twist in this story is not the announcement. The twist is what happened after the announcement, and what I found out about Raymond Briggs that changed the way I understood the entire morning, and what I did with that understanding that surprised every person in my orbit, including myself. Stay. We are just beginning. Subscribe to this channel right now before we go one word further. Drop your name and your city in the comments below. We want to know who is in this room tonight. People are watching from Memphis and Atlanta and London and Lagos and everywhere between, and every single name matters to us. Because this story is for all of you. Now, let's go back to checkpoint 7. I had arrived at Memphis International at 6:15. My flight, Meridian Airlines Flight 447, direct service to New York JFK, departing at 8:05, was already on the departures board on time, gate C14. I had checked in online the night before. I had one carry-on and my personal bag. I had done this specific journey, Memphis to New York, Wednesday morning, the early flight 43 times in the past 4 years. I knew the airport the way you know a place you move through constantly. Not intimately, not the way you know somewhere you love, but competently, with the automatic knowledge of route and timing, and which lines move and which ones don't. Checkpoint 7 was the middle checkpoint, not the fastest, not the slowest, the one I defaulted to because the staffing was usually consistent and the lane management was generally efficient. I joined the line at 6:22. I reached the document check position at 6:44, 3 minutes ahead of my average. The agent at the document check position was a man I had not seen before in 43 times through this checkpoint. He was white, mid-40s, with the specific bearing of someone who has occupied a position of authority long enough to have stopped questioning whether the authority is being exercised correctly and simply exercises it. His name tag said BRIGGS. His posture said, "I have decided something about you before you have opened your mouth." I put my boarding pass and my passport on the podium. I said good morning. He did not say good morning. He picked up the passport and he opened it. He looked at the photo that had been taken 2 years ago, in which my hair was shorter and I had not yet gotten the reading glasses that I now wore and had not worn to the airport because I did not need them to see distances. And he looked at me and he looked at the photo again. Date of birth, he said. March 14th, 1978, I said. He looked at the passport. He looked at the information page. He looked at me again with the specific quality of looking that is not information gathering but authority demonstration. "This doesn't match," he said. "The photo is 2 years old," I said. "My hair is different. I now wear glasses for reading. The biographical information matches exactly." "Ma'am," the ma'am that is not courtesy. I have heard that ma'am every version of my adult life, and I know it the way you know a sound that has been directed at you with specific intent enough times to be recognizable in its first syllable. I need you to step to the secondary screening area. "I have an 8:05 flight," I said. "I have TSA pre-check." I pointed to the pre-check designation on my boarding pass. He looked at the boarding pass. He looked at me. "Step to the secondary area, ma'am." I stepped. Because the calculation that I do not want to do, but am required to do, the calculation of how much resistance is safe at a government checkpoint with a man who has already decided something about me, and is the one with the badge produced step as the answer. Not because it was right, because it was survivable. The secondary screening area was to the left of the main checkpoint, enclosed by retractable barriers, visible to the people in the main line. I stood in it and I breathed and I watched Raymond Briggs pick up my passport and examine it with the extended, performed scrutiny of someone who is demonstrating authority rather than gathering information. He made a call on his radio. Low voice turned slightly away. I caught fragments, possible fraudulent document. I caught secondary verification required. I caught, yes, she's here holding. He ended the call. He looked at me. He looked at the passport. And then, with both hands and a specific applied pressure, and his eyes on my face so that I would know he was doing it, he tore it in half. The sound was small. The crowd noise of the airport covered most of it, but the people closest to the checkpoint barrier, 3, 4 people, heard it or saw it or both. I saw the teenager who was 3 people back in the main line look up from his phone and look at my hands and look at Briggs and take out his phone and begin to record. I looked at the 2 halves of my passport. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth, which is what my therapist, Dr. Angela Watkins, has taught me to do when my system receives something it needs to process before it responds, and which I have become very good at over the years of my career in rooms that required more processing than responding. That, I said, is a federal document. The document appeared fraudulent, ma'am. On what basis? My voice was level. I had made it level with the specific effort of someone who understands that a voice that is not level will be used as evidence against them. What specific element of my passport appeared fraudulent to you? The photograph does not match. The photograph shows the same person with a different hairstyle taken 2 years ago. That is not a basis for document destruction. I need your badge number. I need your supervisor. I need this interaction documented from this moment forward. I looked at him steadily. And I need you to understand that I am completely calm and completely serious, and I am not going to leave this area until I have spoken with someone with the authority to address what you have just done. He looked at me with the expression of someone who expected a different response and is recalibrating. The expected response, I know what it was. I have seen it expected of me my entire professional life, was more emotion, less precision. More distress, less documentation demand. He had expected to manage a reaction. He was encountering a record. Wait here, he said. I will, I said. He left. I stood in the secondary screening area. I looked at the people in the main line. I looked at the teenager with the phone. I gave the specific small nod that communicates, yes, record this. Keep recording. He nodded back barely perceptibly and kept his phone up. A black woman 3 places further back in the line, business clothes, rolling carry-on, the specific bearing of someone who also moves through airports as a professional and also makes the calculations I make, caught my eye. She looked at me with the expression I have given and received throughout my professional life. The specific acknowledgement of 2 people who recognize the situation and each other within it. She reached into her bag and produced a business card and held it up. I read the name on it from 8 feet away, attorney. She pointed to herself. I nodded. I filed that away. I breathed. I waited. My father drove a city bus in Memphis for 31 years. Bus Route 14, which ran from East Memphis through Midtown and downtown and back, Monday through Saturday, 2 shifts a week for 3 decades. I used to ride his bus sometimes as a child, not because I needed to, because I wanted to. I wanted to watch him work. I wanted to see what it looked like when Leonard Cole was in his domain, when he was the authority in the space, when the bus was his and the route was his and the people on it were his responsibility. And he took the responsibility with the specific dignified seriousness that he took everything. He was always the same on the bus and off it. That is the thing I noticed as a child, and that stayed with me. He did not have a bus version and a home version. He was Leonard Cole, consistent, dignified, present, the same quality of attention for the passenger who was a downtown lawyer in a good suit, and the passenger who was a tresevenant teenager with a backpack and nowhere particular to be. He saw people. He saw them the way my mother saw her third graders, as specific and real and deserving of being seen. I went into aviation because of a woman named Patricia Weston. Patricia Weston came to speak at my high school in 1994. She was a senior manager at Northwest Airlines, one of the few Black women in airline management at that level in the country at that time, and she came to Tresevenant High School, a predominantly Black public school in Memphis, Tennessee, and she stood at the front of the auditorium and she talked about what she did for 45 minutes, and she changed the direction of my life. Not because she made it sound glamorous. She made it sound like what it was: complicated, demanding, systemically difficult to access, requiring sustained effort and precision, and the specific kind of ambition that is not about approval but about the work itself. She made it sound like something worth doing. She made it sound like something that people like the people in that auditorium could do if they decided to. I decided to. I went to the University of Memphis on a scholarship. I went to Vanderbilt for my MBA. I applied to every airline that would interview me. I got my first job at Meridian Airways, then a small regional carrier, at 24 as an operations coordinator. I grew with Meridian as Meridian grew. I moved from operations coordinator to senior coordinator to manager to director to vice president to executive vice president to 6 days before the Wednesday morning at checkpoint 7, the board's unanimous selection as incoming chief executive officer. The announcement was embargoed for 36 hours. My travel to New York was to meet with the investment banking team that would be managing the analyst briefings ahead of the public announcement. I was traveling alone because my executive assistant Portia had offered to accompany me, and I had told her that I had made this trip 43 times alone, and I could make it 44 times the same way. I have thought about that conversation many times since. The supervisor who arrived was a man named Delaney. He looked at the two halves of my passport. He looked at Briggs. He looked at me. His expression underwent the visible sequence of someone who has been briefed on a situation and has arrived to find that the situation is larger than the briefing indicated. "Dr. Cole," he said. He had my name from the boarding pass. "I apologize for. I need the incident documented before anything else," I said. "Badge number, time, location, description of actions taken. I need that documentation before we discuss resolution." He looked at Briggs. Briggs looked at the floor. "Of course," Delaney said. What happened over the next 40 minutes was the specific procedural machinery of an institution responding to a situation it has not handled correctly and is now managing. Forms were produced. Badge numbers were recorded. A formal incident report was initiated. An emergency travel document verification protocol was activated, which involved phone verification of my identity through Meridian's corporate travel office and a temporary travel authorization that would allow me to board my flight. During those 40 minutes, the attorney from the main line, whose name was Carolyn Hughes and who was a civil rights attorney with 20 years of practice in Memphis, had made her way to the secondary screening area and had introduced herself and had said, quietly and directly, "You don't have to handle this alone." "I know," I said. "Thank you for being here." "The young man has video," she said. She meant the teenager. "He sent it to me already. I gave him my card when I saw what was happening." I looked at her. The specific network of Black women in a crisis, the seeing, the documenting, the showing up, had activated in the 8 minutes between the tearing and this moment with the precision of something that had been built and maintained and was now doing exactly what it was built to do. "I have my own attorney," I said. "Marcus Webb in New York. I'll contact him when I land." "I know Marcus," she said. "Tell him Carolyn Hughes sends her regards." I made my flight with 9 minutes to spare. I sat in seat 1A and I looked out the window at Memphis growing small beneath me, and I thought about my father's bus Route 14 and what it looked like from above and how the city looked different from up here and was the same city. "We are at the halfway point, and I need you to stay. Because what I have told you so far is the shape of a story you have seen before, injustice, documentation, just barely making the flight. But what happens when I land in New York, and what I find out about Raymond Briggs 3 days after the announcement, is the thing that changes everything. Subscribe right now, your name and your city in the comments, and stay. We are getting to the part that will stay with you." I landed at JFK at 11:22. I called Marcus Webb from the car. I told him everything. He listened with the specific, focused silence of someone who is simultaneously receiving information and constructing a legal framework around it. "The video," he said. "I'll send it." "Send it now," he said, "before anything else." I sent it. I continued to New York. I did the meetings, the investment bankers, the analyst briefings, the communications team finalizing the press release language. I did all of it with the specific compartmentalization of someone who has learned to hold multiple things in different chambers of themselves simultaneously. In one chamber, the work, the announcement, the 48 years of building that had arrived at this moment. In another chamber, the secondary screening area, the sound of the tearing, the specific look on Raymond Briggs's face while he did it. Both chambers were real. Both were mine. I did not let either one collapse into the other. The announcement went out Thursday morning. The reaction was what announcements of this kind produce: coverage in the business press, social media response, the specific congratulatory noise of an industry acknowledging a milestone. First Black woman CEO of Meridian Airways, the 7th largest carrier in the United States. The video went out Thursday afternoon. I did not release it. The teenager, whose name was Marcus, which I found pleasing in its coincidence with my attorney's name, had released it on his own platforms Wednesday night, before the announcement, before anyone knew who I was. He had captioned it, "TSA agent at Memphis airport just destroyed this woman's passport for no reason." She handled it better than I would have. The video had accumulated significant viewership by the time the Thursday morning announcement connected the woman in the video to the incoming CEO of Meridian Airlines. By Thursday evening, the connection had been made everywhere. My phone received more messages in a 6-hour period than it had in the previous 6 months. I responded to very few of them. I responded to my father, who had watched the video and called me and said nothing for a long moment and then said, "Vanessa, are you all right?" "I'm all right, Daddy," I said. "You held yourself," he said. "The whole time I watched and you held yourself." "I learned from watching you hold yourself," I said, "every day on that bus." He was quiet. "I'm going to put Patricia Weston's name in the church bulletin this Sunday," he said, "as a prayer of thanks." "For what?" "For coming to Trezevant in 1994, he said. "Now I need to tell you the twist. The thing that I promised you at the beginning was not the announcement. The thing that changed the way I understood the entire morning at Checkpoint 7. 3 days after the announcement, Saturday morning, the day before I was scheduled to fly back to Memphis, Carolyn Hughes called me. I looked into Raymond Briggs, she said. "Carolyn, I know you have Marcus," she said. "This isn't about the legal strategy. This is something you need to know." I waited. "Raymond Briggs has been a TSA agent at Memphis for 9 years, she said. Before that, he was a gate agent at Meridian Airways, Memphis hub, for 11 years. I was quiet. "He was terminated from Meridian in 2013, she said. "Termination review shows a sustained pattern of passenger complaints and 2 formal disciplinary actions. The termination was signed by the senior vice president of ground operations at the time." She paused. "The name on the termination document is yours, Vanessa." I sat down, not metaphorically. I was standing in my hotel room looking at the city, and I sat down on the edge of the bed because my legs made a unilateral decision about standing. "I signed that termination," I said slowly. "You were SVP of Ground Operations in 2013, she said. "The termination was for a documented pattern of differential treatment of passengers that included multiple complaints from Black passengers about excessive secondary screening. You signed the termination." I sat with this for a long moment, the full shape of Wednesday morning rearranging itself around this new fact. Raymond Briggs had worked for Meridian. Raymond Briggs had been terminated for the same category of behavior, the same differential treatment, the same secondary screening pattern that he had demonstrated at Checkpoint 7. And the signature on the document that ended his career at Meridian was mine. He had recognized me. The photo discrepancy had not been the real reason for the secondary screening. He had recognized me, and he had processed me through a framework that was not about document verification, but about something else entirely. About the specific, complicated psychology of a man who had been removed from a position by a person who was now standing in front of him without the authority she had had in 2013, and who had decided, in whatever chamber of himself the decision was made, that this was his opportunity. He had looked me in the eye when he did it. Now I understood the look. I want to tell you what I did with this information because I think it matters, and because the easy version, the version where I immediately release the history publicly and let the narrative complete itself with the satisfying closure of a revealed motive, is not what I did. I called Marcus Webb. I told him what Carolyn had found. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "That changes the legal analysis significantly." "I know," I said. "Vanessa," he said. "What do you want to do?" I thought about my father on bus route 14. I thought about the specific, consistent quality of a man who was the same person in every context, not because the contexts didn't matter, but because he had decided who he was before the contexts arrived. I thought about what it meant to have power now, the specific new power of the CEO title, the 42,000 employees, the platform, and what I was going to do with it. I want to do it right, I said. Not fast, not satisfying. Right. Right looked like this. The formal complaint to TSA with the full documentation, including the video, went forward through Marcus's office. The history of Briggs's prior employment and the nature of his termination from Meridian were provided to the TSA Inspector General as relevant context for understanding the motivation for the incident. Carolyn Hughes filed a parallel civil complaint. All of this was documented and pursued through the proper channels. What I did not do was release the history publicly. Not because it wasn't relevant, it was. Not because it didn't matter, it did. But because releasing it publicly would have shifted the story from the systemic issue, the pattern of differential treatment, the inadequate accountability, the failed protocols, to the individual drama of a man who recognized the woman who fired him. And the systemic issue was the one I was in a position to actually address. I was the CEO of an airline. I had 42,000 employees who moved through airports every day. I had the platform and the authority to make the systemic issue impossible to ignore. I used both. The first month of my tenure as CEO of Meridian Airways, I established the first airline-level passenger dignity initiative in the commercial aviation industry. A comprehensive framework for accountability in passenger treatment at every point of the Meridian customer journey, with real metrics, real consequences, and real reporting. I partnered with 3 civil rights organizations to design the framework. I testified before a Senate subcommittee on aviation safety and security, where I presented the data on differential treatment in secondary screening that the TSA's own records contained and that nobody in my position had ever presented in that forum before. I did not make a single public statement that named Raymond Briggs. I made approximately 40 public statements that described the conditions that produced Raymond Briggs. There is a difference. The difference is between accountability for an individual and accountability for a system. And I was in a position to pursue the second, which produces more and lasts longer, and reaches the people who were never in my specific secondary screening area on a specific Wednesday morning, but who are in secondary screening areas every day and every week and every month because the system that produced that morning has not yet been adequately addressed. The TSA investigation was completed 5 months after the incident. Briggs was terminated from TSA employment. The investigation found that the destruction of my passport was not supported by any applicable TSA protocol and constituted an unauthorized action with a demonstrably insufficient basis. The investigation also found, and this is in the public record, which is why I am telling you, that Briggs had a prior complaint history at TSA Memphis consistent with the complaint history that had led to his termination from Meridian in 2013. He had moved from one checkpoint to another. The behavior had moved with him. The system had not caught it because the systems did not talk to each other, because the records were not shared, because the accountability was not designed to follow people across employment contexts. That is a correctable failure. We are correcting it. Slowly, imperfectly, with the sustained effort that is the only kind of effort that actually changes systems rather than the appearance of systems. I want to tell you the last thing. The thing that I have not told publicly before and that I am telling now because the time for it is right and because the people who need to hear it are in this room. 6 weeks after the incident, 4 weeks after the announcement, I received a letter. Physical letter, not email. Memphis postmark. No return address. Inside, a single piece of paper. Handwritten. The handwriting was not careful. It was the handwriting of someone who had written and rewritten and written again and finally sent before they could change their mind. It said, "Dr. Cole, I know you know who I am now and why I did what I did. I am not going to make excuses for it because there are none that are adequate. What I will tell you is that I have been carrying what happened that morning since the moment I did it, and the weight of it is not something I know how to put down. I was wrong. About the morning and about a great deal more. I don't expect this to change anything. I needed to say it to you directly. It was signed, R. Briggs. I sat with that letter for a long time. I sat with the complicated truth of it, the inadequacy of it as a response to what it was responding to, and also the specific courage of the sending, and also the complicated humanity of a man who had done something genuinely wrong and was sitting with the weight of it in the same way that I had been sitting with the weight of it, from our two very different positions. I did not respond. I am still deciding whether to respond. This is the kind of decision I am taking seriously enough not to rush. What I know is this: the letter does not change what happened. The weight he is carrying does not lift what he put on me. The apology, incomplete, arriving through the mail with no return address, is not the same as accountability, and accountability is what the system required and what the investigation produced. But I am also a person who was raised by Leonard and me Cole of Memphis, Tennessee, who believed in the full complicated humanity of every person on bus route 14 regardless of what that humanity had done. And I am trying to hold the full complicated humanity of this situation without letting it excuse what is not excusable, and without letting what is not excusable prevent me from being the full complicated human I am. This is the hardest work. This is the work that happens after the announcement and after the investigation and after the initiative and after the testimony. This is the interior work of a person trying to figure out what they want to carry and what they want to put down and what putting something down actually means when the thing is real and was done to you and changed you in ways that you are still discovering. I am figuring it out. I will keep figuring it out. That is what I have to offer you on this question, which is not a resolution but a truth about where I am in the process of reaching one. I am Vanessa Cole. I am 46 years old, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Airways, and I fly out of Memphis International Airport multiple times per month because Memphis is my home and always will be. I go through checkpoint 7 sometimes. I go through it with my documents. A new passport, taken last January, in which my hair is exactly as it is now and my reading glasses are on my face because I am wearing them and they are mine, and I am not managing my appearance for the photo, just being in it. I go through it with the full knowledge of who I am. Not performing the knowledge, having it, the way you have things that have been built over 46 years of living and working and surviving and building and losing things, and finding them again in different forms. I go through checkpoint 7 knowing what happened there and what came after. Knowing what I built after. Knowing that the Passenger Dignity Initiative is in its 2nd year and has produced documented changes in secondary screening accountability at 12 airports across the Meridian network. Knowing that I testified in front of a Senate subcommittee and said things that had not been said before from that position by someone with my platform, and that the saying of them mattered even when the immediate response was inadequate. Knowing that a letter arrived in my office with a Memphis postmark, and that I have not yet decided what to do with it, and that not deciding is itself a decision about what I need before I can move forward. My father rides his own bus now, retired from Route 14, but he takes the bus everywhere as a passenger because he says a man who drove Memphis for 31 years is not going to stop seeing it from the window. He calls me every Sunday morning at 6:45. He asks about the work. I tell him. He says things that cost him nothing to say and cost me everything not to cry at, which is the specific skill of fathers who know their children. My mother retired from Trezevant Elementary 3 years ago. She volunteers 3 mornings a week in a 3rd-grade classroom at a school in Midtown. She says she cannot stop seeing 3rd graders as people who need to be seen, and she does not intend to stop. They built me, beam by beam, joint by joint, with the specific intention of a thing that is meant to last. And I am built, and I am building. The passport was replaced. The new one has been used 28 times. Every time I open it at a checkpoint, I remember the sound of the old one being torn. And then I remember my father's face on the phone when he called after watching the video. And then I remember the woman in the security line holding up a business card that said attorney on it. And then I go forward. Going forward is not forgetting. Going forward is not forgiving on a schedule or performing piece you have not made or pretending that what was done was less than it was. Going forward is the specific act of a person who has been here and knows what they are carrying and chooses to carry it towards something rather than away from something. I am going towards something. I have always been going towards something. The Wednesday morning at checkpoint 7 tried to be a wall. I built a door in it and I walked through. That is what I do. That is what my parents made me to do. That is what I will keep doing. That is Vanessa's story. And if you are sitting somewhere right now having been treated like nothing in a space you should have been seen in, I want you to hear this clearly. What they did does not define the size of what you are. What you build after does. /subscribe to this channel right now. We are here every week with stories like this one, stories about people surviving real things and building real things after. Drop your name and your city in the comments right now. Every name matters. Every city. We are a room full of people who showed up, and that means something. Share this video with one person today. The one person you know who is standing at a checkpoint right now trying to figure out whether their document will be accepted. Tell them to keep presenting it. Tell them it is valid. Tell them to go forward. Next week, we are bringing you the story of a woman who applied to the same company 11 times over 15 years and was rejected every single time. On the day she stopped applying and launched her own company, the original company called to ask for a meeting. The reason they called will change everything you think you know about persistence and timing and what the universe does with the things you build when nobody is watching. We are calling it. She applied 11 times and was rejected every time. The day she stopped, they called her. Set your notification. You need to be here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying. And to every person who has ever had something torn in front of them that was theirs and was real, you are still real. The tearing does not change that. Go forward. Go forward.